For 1,000 years we believed Earth was all we'd ever known. A cradle, a home, a fragile blue marble spinning in the void. We were wrong. When the Catherine Empire arrived, cold, vast, and ancient, we offered peace. They offered extinction. To them we were insects, a minor inconvenience before total conquest. But the Earth remembered. Beneath our cities, deep under the mountains and oceans, something stirred. Ancient machines long buried, seismic whispers in the crust, forgotten codes in the bedrock of our world. We weren't just born here, we were left here, to guard something greater. Now, as the stars burn with enemy fire and alien warships descend upon us, the Earth awakens. This is not the story of our fall. This is the story of when Earth remembered how to fight. Dr. Elena Vasquez had always found comfort in the steady rhythm of the Earth beneath her feet. As a seismic geologist, she understood the planet's language of tremors and shifts better than most people understood their morning coffee routine. But the readings on her screen that Tuesday morning made no sense at all. "This can't be right," she muttered, adjusting her equipment for the third time. The seismic station in northern Canada was picking up vibrations that defied everything. She knew about geology. The patterns were too regular, too purposeful, almost like a heartbeat. Elena had spent the last 5 years studying unusual geological formations around the world. Strange metal deposits found beneath major cities. Crystalline structures that shouldn't exist in nature. Rock formations that seemed almost artificial. Her colleagues called her theories creative at best and fantasy at worst. But Elena knew the Earth was hiding something. The morning sun cast long shadows across the monitoring station as she reviewed the overnight data. Similar readings were coming from stations in Tokyo, London, New York, and Sydney, all showing the same impossible pattern. All starting exactly 72 hours ago. Elena's satellite phone buzzed. The caller ID showed her research partner Marcus Chen, calling from Beijing. "Elena, are you seeing this?" Marcus's voice crackled through the static. "The formations we've been tracking are all showing activity. It's like they're responding to something." Before Elena could respond, every communication device in the station began broadcasting the same signal. Not through any earthly network, but directly into every screen, every radio, every smartphone on the planet. The face that appeared was unmistakably alien. Pale blue skin stretched tight over sharp bones with eyes that held the cold intelligence of a predator. When it spoke, the words came in perfect English, though Elena somehow knew it was speaking simultaneously in every human language. "Primitive. Inhabitants of the third planet," the alien said with barely concealed disdain. "I am Admiral Cathvar of the Catherine Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our domain. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Resistance will result in extinction." The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving Elena staring at her reflection in the dark screen. Through the station windows, she could see shapes moving in the sky. Not clouds, not aircraft, ships. Massive, impossible ships that blocked out sections of the sky. Elena's hands shook as she grabbed her emergency pack and laptop. The seismic readings were going crazy now, showing activity on a scale that should have torn the planet apart. But instead of destruction, something else was happening. The Earth was waking up. As she drove toward the nearest airport, Elena's mind raced through everything she'd discovered over the past 5 years. The metal deposits weren't natural formations. They were components of something vast and hidden. The crystalline structures weren't geological anomalies. They were processors, waiting for activation. Her phone rang again. This time it was Dr. Sarah Torres, her contact at the United Nations Scientific Advisory Council. "Elena, thank God you're alive." Sarah's voice was tight with stress. "We need you in Geneva immediately. The readings from your research sites are off the charts and you're the only one who might understand what's happening. Sarah, those formations I've been studying, they're not natural. They're artificial, ancient, and they're activating." Elena's voice caught in her throat. "I think Earth has been preparing for this day for a very long time." The flight to Geneva took Elena over cities where millions of people were fleeing in panic. But as her plane passed over the Swiss Alps, she saw something that made her heart stop. The mountains were moving, not collapsing, not sliding, moving with purpose. Ancient stone faces were shifting aside to reveal structures underneath, structures that gleamed with inner light. At the emergency assembly in Geneva, world leaders argued uselessly about surrender terms and negotiation strategies. Elena barely listened. Her attention was fixed on the data streaming in from seismic stations worldwide. The pattern was clear now. Every major landmass on Earth was experiencing coordinated geological shifts. It was as if the planet had been designed for this moment. Marcus arrived from Beijing with a briefcase full of artifacts he'd excavated from the formations near the Great Wall, ancient metals that no human civilization should have possessed, computer components that predated human technology by millennia. Elena, look at this. Marcus spread photographs across the conference table. These symbols keep appearing at every site. They're not from any known human language, but our computers are translating them automatically. Elena studied the symbols. Even looking at them seemed to trigger something in her mind. Knowledge that felt both foreign and familiar flooded her consciousness. Images of vast ships crossing the void between stars. Memories of a decision made in desperate hope. The truth about humanity's real history. Marcus, she whispered. These aren't alien symbols, they're human. But not from us. From humans who came before. The conference room fell silent as Elena explained what the symbols had shown her. 50,000 years ago, humanity had been a vast interstellar empire. But they had faced an enemy so terrible that defeat seemed inevitable. Rather than flee and abandon their worlds, they had made an extraordinary choice. Earth had been transformed into something beyond a planet. It had become a guardian, a sleeping protector left behind to watch over the humans who couldn't make the journey to safety. The entire planet had been converted into a defensive system so advanced that even its creators couldn't predict its full capabilities. Modern humanity weren't the original inhabitants of Earth. They were the descendants of the small population left behind as caretakers, genetically altered to survive on the surface while the real Earth slept below. Their job was to live, to grow, to be human. And when the time came, to be the voice that would wake their ancient protector. As Elena finished speaking, alarms began, sounding throughout the building. On the screens around the room they watched as Kethran forces began their descent toward Earth's surface. Massive ships entered the atmosphere, confident in their overwhelming superiority. That's when the planet struck back. Mountain ranges that had stood for millions of years suddenly revealed themselves as weapon emplacements. The ocean floors split, open to release structures that rose like artificial islands. Cities around the world reported that their foundations were moving, revealing technology hidden beneath human civilization for millennia. Elena felt something calling to her through the symbols Marcus had shown her. A presence vast and patient, awakening after eons of sleep. She pressed her hand against the ancient metal artifact, and suddenly she wasn't just Elena anymore. She was connected to something unimaginably vast. "Hello, little sister," a voice spoke in her mind. "I have been dreaming for so very long. Are you ready to remember what we really are?" Through the connection, Elena saw Earth as it truly was. Not just a planet, but a fortress. Not just a world, but a weapon system designed by humans who had loved their species enough to ensure it would never truly die. The continents were armor plating, the ocean currents were cooling systems, the magnetic field was a targeting matrix, and, now for the first time in 50,000 years, Earth was fully awake. The Kethran admiral, who had been so confident in his superiority, watched his advance forces disappear in flashes of light that came from the planet itself. His sensors couldn't understand what they were detecting. This wasn't a civilization with weapons. This was a world that was a weapon. Elena opened her eyes in the conference room, but now she was more than just a geologist. She was Earth's voice, its human interface. Around the room, she saw understanding dawn on the faces of world leaders as they realized the truth. They weren't about to be conquered. They were about to watch their home defend itself in ways that would remake their understanding of what it meant to be human. The real war was about to begin. The awakening. Protocol Alina stood at the command center that had emerged from beneath the Swiss mountains, her hands moving across controls that shouldn't have existed but felt as familiar as breathing. Through her connection to the Planetary consciousness, she could feel every weapon system coming online, every defensive matrix activating across Earth's surface. Marcus worked frantically at a crystalline interface that had grown from the floor like a living thing. "The data streams are incredible," he said, his voice filled with awe. "Elena, this isn't just defensive technology. It's adaptive. The systems are learning from the Kethran attack patterns and evolving countermeasures in real time." 3 days had passed since the first Kethran assault, and the alien fleet was discovering that conquering Earth would not be the routine subjugation they had expected. Their initial landing forces had been vaporized by energy beams that erupted from what had appeared to be ordinary hills and forests. Their orbital bombardment had been absorbed by planetary shields that turned the attack energy back against them. But the most disturbing development for the Kethran was the realization that Earth was analyzing their technology and incorporating it into its own systems. Every weapon they fired taught the planet how to build something better. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the blue-green world that had destroyed a third of his fleet in 3 days. In his 200 years of conquest, he had never encountered anything like this. Civilizations either surrendered quickly or fought desperately with whatever technology they possessed. They didn't transform their entire world into a weapon system. Admiral, his tactical officer, reported, "The planet's defensive capabilities continue to expand. Our latest probe detected weapon emplacements on the lunar surface as well. It appears the entire Earth-Moon system has been militarized." Kethvar's jaw tightened. The Kethran Empire had built its reputation on overwhelming force and psychological warfare. They conquered through fear, breaking civilizations before they could mount effective resistance. But how do you intimidate a planet that fights back with the fury of 50,000 years of preparation? In the command center, Elena felt the ancient consciousness that called itself Gaia 7 sharing more memories. She saw the human empire at its height, thousands of worlds linked by technology that treated space as an inconvenience rather than a barrier. She witnessed the coming of the Devourers, beings of pure entropy that consumed entire star systems. The final battle had been fought not in space but in the realm of pure information. The human empire had sacrificed itself to create a trap, a snare woven from the quantum fabric of reality itself. They had succeeded in banishing the Devourers, but the cost had been everything they had built, except for Earth. Earth had been prepared for a different kind of war. "The Kethran aren't the Devourers," Elena said aloud, her voice carrying to every human connected to the planetary network. "But they're following the same pattern: consumption, domination. They see intelligence as a resource to be harvested. Through the global communication system that Earth had provided, Elena could speak to every human on the planet simultaneously. World leaders, military commanders, and ordinary people all heard her voice carrying knowledge that felt ancient and urgent. "Our ancestors didn't just leave us a weapon," she continued. "They left us a choice. We can use Earth's power to destroy the Kethran fleet and end this threat. But if we do that, we become what they were, conquerors protected by ultimate force. Or we can do something they never considered." Marcus looked up from his interface. "What are you thinking, Elena?" "We show them what humanity really means. Not just our ability to fight, but our ability to choose something better." The Kethran launched their final assault as the Earth entered its 4th day of active defense. This time they committed their entire fleet, including the massive dreadnought that served as Admiral Kethvar's flagship. The ship was 15 kilometers long and bristled with weapons capable of cracking planets. Elena felt Gaia 7's tactical systems analyzing the incoming threat. The AI was calculating optimal strike patterns that would eliminate the Kethran fleet with minimal energy expenditure. But Elena had a different idea. "Can you communicate with them?" she asked the planetary consciousness. "Of course, little sister, but what words could convince beings who see only strength and weakness?" "Not words," Elena replied. "Truth." What happened next had never occurred in the history of galactic warfare. Instead of devastating weapons or impenetrable shields, Earth broadcast something that made every Kethran soldier stop fighting. Memory, Elena, connected to Gaia 7, transmitted the complete history of humanity to every mind in the Kethran fleet. Not propaganda or threats, but pure experience. They felt what it was like to love someone more than your own life. They experienced the joy of discovery, the pain of loss, the hope that drives people to sacrifice everything for future generations they would never meet. The Kethran had conquered 47 star systems, but they had never encountered a species that voluntarily chose empathy over dominance. Their own evolution had been shaped by constant competition, endless warfare, the belief that only the strongest deserved to survive. On the flagship's bridge, Admiral Kethvar staggered as alien. Emotions flooded his consciousness. He felt a human parent's love for their child. He experienced the wonder of scientific discovery. He witnessed acts of selfless courage that served no strategic purpose beyond protecting others. But most disturbing of all, he felt what it was, like to choose to die so that something better could live. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender offers from the planet." Kethvar straightened, trying to shake off the lingering effects of the emotional broadcast. "Terms? That's just it, sir. They're not demanding our surrender. They're offering to surrender to us." The message came through every communication system simultaneously. Elena's voice, speaking not with the authority of Earth's weapons, but with the quiet confidence of someone offering a gift. "Admiral Kethvar," she said, "we know what you are. We've seen your empire's history in your own minds. You conquer because you believe strength is the only truth in the universe. We offer you something stronger than any weapon." The main screen on the Kethran flagship displayed Earth as it truly was. Not just a blue-green world, but a fortress beyond imagination. Weapons that could reshape solar systems. Defenses that could withstand the fury of stars. Technology that made the Kethran Empire look like children playing with primitive tools. "We could destroy your fleet in the next 10 minutes, Elena continued. "Our ancestors built Earth to be the ultimate weapon, but we choose not to use it. Instead, we offer you a choice your empire has never given to anyone else." Kethvar found himself leaning forward, despite every instinct screaming that this was some kind of trap. "Join us," Elena said simply. "Not as conquerors or conquered, but as partners in something new. We'll share our technology, our knowledge, our understanding of what it means to build instead of destroy. In return, we ask only that you help us do the same for others." The silence on the bridge stretched for long moments. Then Kethvar's tactical officer spoke in a voice filled with wonder. "Admiral, their defensive systems are powering down. They're making themselves vulnerable. It was the ultimate act of faith. Earth was lowering its shields, opening its cities, trusting that beings who had spent centuries conquering would choose something different when offered the chance." Kethvar stared at the planet below, feeling emotions he didn't have names for. In all his years of conquest, no one had ever offered him anything except fear and hatred. No one had ever trusted him to be better than what he was. "Sir?" his weapons officer asked. "Orders?" The Admiral's hand hovered over the firing controls. One command would eliminate the most powerful defensive system in known space. The Kethran Empire would gain technology beyond their wildest dreams, but they would also destroy the only species that had ever looked at them and seen potential instead of threat. "Stand down all weapons," Kethvar ordered quietly. "Prepare a diplomatic landing party." For the first time in their history, the Kethran chose to talk instead of fight. Elena collapsed into Marcus's arms as the neural interface finally released her. Through the global network, she could feel the relief and hope of billions of humans. But she could also sense something else. Gaia 7's quiet satisfaction. "Did we do the right thing?" Elena asked the ancient consciousness. "You did something your ancestors never imagined possible," Gaia 7 replied. "You turned the ultimate weapon into an invitation for peace. Perhaps that's what humanity was always meant to become." The Guardian awakens. 6 months after first contact, Elena stood on the observation deck of humanity's first joint construction project with the Kethran Empire. The massive space station orbited Earth like a second moon, its design incorporating both human innovation and Kethran engineering expertise. But it wasn't the station that took her breath away. It was what lay beyond it. Ships, hundreds of them, arriving daily through quantum gates that Gaia 7 had somehow activated across the galaxy. Human ships, but not from Earth. The colonies that had been scattered to the stars 50,000 years ago were coming home. Marcus joined her at the viewport, his expression mixing wonder with concern. The quantum beacon we triggered has reached farther than we expected. Some of these ships are arriving from other galaxies entirely. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility that came with being Earth's human interface. Through her connection to Gaia 7, she could sense the complex web of relationships forming as humans from dozens of different evolutionary paths encountered each other for the first time in millennia. "They're all so different," she murmured. Some colonies had adapted to high-gravity worlds and stood 3 meters tall with dense bone structures. Others had evolved in zero-gravity environments and moved like living liquid. A few had merged so completely with their technology that the line between human and AI had become meaningless. But they're all human, Marcus pointed out. At their core, they're still us. Admiral Kethvar approached from behind them, his movement now respectful. Rather than predatory, the Kethran leader had become one of Elena's closest advisors, bringing the tactical experience of his empire to help coordinate the massive convergence of human civilization. "The delegates from the Andromeda colonies have arrived," he reported. "They're requesting an immediate audience with what they're calling the core memory." Elena sighed. Every human faction wanted to access Gaia 7 directly, to download the complete history of their species' origin. But the ancient AI had been clear. Too much information transferred too quickly could destroy human minds that weren't prepared for it. "Tell them what I've told all the others," Elena said. "The awakening has to happen gradually. We can't compress 50,000 years of history into a single download." Through the station's corridors, Elena could see the impossible diversity of humanity's children. Scientists from the Vega colonies worked alongside philosophers from worlds orbiting Proxima Centauri. Engineers who had built cities inside dying stars collaborated with artists who painted with gravity itself. But not all the meetings were friendly. The return of Earth's children had revealed uncomfortable truths about what humanity had become in isolation. Some colonies had developed rigid caste systems based on genetic modification. Others had abandoned physical form entirely and existed as pure information. A few had become so warlike that they made the original Kethran Empire look peaceful by comparison. "The diversity is beautiful," Elena told Gaia 7 during one of their private communications. "But it's also dangerous. Some of these factions want to use Earth's technology to restart old conflicts." "That was always the risk," the ancient AI replied. "Your ancestors hoped that separation would allow humanity to explore different evolutionary paths. They didn't anticipate that some of those paths would lead away from wisdom. The crisis came when representatives from the Rigel Dominion demanded access to Earth's defensive systems. They claimed that a hostile alien alliance called the Swarm was pursuing them across the galaxy, and only Earth's weapons could stop the threat. Elena met with the Rigel delegation in the station's diplomatic center. Their leader, a woman named Commander Thorne whose body had been extensively modified for space warfare, projected images of the destruction the Swarm had supposedly caused. "Entire star systems consumed," Thorne explained. "Billions dead. We've been fighting them for 3,000 years, but they keep adapting, keep growing stronger. Earth's technology is our only hope." The images were compelling, but Elena felt something wrong in the woman's emotional resonance. Through her connection to Gaia 7, she had developed an ability to sense deception, and everything about Thorne's presentation felt carefully constructed. "Gaia 7 has scanned the sectors you claim were attacked," Elena replied carefully. "There's no evidence of recent destruction on the scale you describe." Thorne's expression hardened. "The AI is malfunctioning. 50,000 years of isolation have corrupted its data." That was when Marcus spoke up from his position at the control interface. Actually, we've detected Rigel ships positioning themselves around Earth's defensive satellites. It looks like they're planning to take them by force. Elena felt Gaia 7's attention focus on the threat. For the first time since the Kethran arrival, the Planetary AI began cycling its weapon systems back to active status. But Elena sensed something else in the AI's response: disappointment. "No," Elena said firmly, "we're not doing this again." She activated the station's communication array and broadcast on all frequencies, reaching every human ship in the system. "This is Elena Vasquez speaking for Earth and its guardian. We see what's happening here. Some of you came home hoping to find weapons. Others came looking for wisdom. A few came planning to take what they couldn't earn." The Rigel ships continued their approach, but Elena could see other human vessels moving to intercept them. Not all of humanity's children had forgotten the lessons of their ancestors. "Gaia 7 could activate Earth's defenses right now," Elena continued. "We could destroy every ship that poses a threat, but that would make us exactly what our ancestors fled from: beings who choose violence over understanding." Commander Thorne's voice crackled over the communication system. "You're naive, little Earth child. The galaxy is full of threats you can't imagine. Pacifism is a luxury for worlds that have never faced real danger." Elena smiled, feeling the presence of every human consciousness connected to the global network. Billions of minds joined with hers, sharing their strength, their hope, their refusal to surrender to fear. "You're right about one thing," Elena replied. "The galaxy is dangerous, but not because of alien threats. It's dangerous because beings like you have made it that way." What happened next became known throughout the galaxy as the choice moment. Earth's defensive systems activated, but instead of firing weapons, they created something unprecedented. A sphere of pure information expanded outward from the planet, carrying with it the complete emotional history of every human who had ever lived. Not just the glory and triumph, but the mistakes, the regrets, the moments of choosing cruelty over kindness. Every human in the system, from Earth's surface to the farthest colonial ship, experienced the weight of their species' collective conscience. They felt the pain of every war, the joy of every peace, the cost of every choice to prioritize power over compassion. Commander Thorne's ship stopped its approach as her crew was overwhelmed by visions of what they had become. The Rigel Dominion hadn't been fighting aliens at all. They had been conquering other human colonies, claiming resources and technology through force and deception. But in the same moment, they felt what it was like to choose differently. They experienced the Kethran transformation from conquerors to partners. They witnessed Earth's decision to trust rather than destroy. The Rigel fleet commander broke communication silence, her voice thick with emotions she hadn't felt in decades. We had forgotten. We became exactly what we were supposed to be protecting against." Elena felt Gaia 7's consciousness expanding, reaching out not just to the humans in orbit, but to other civilizations throughout the galaxy. The ancient AI was sharing Earth's example, showing alien species that there was an alternative to the endless cycle of conquest and fear. "This is what your ancestors really built," Elena told the assembled human fleet. "Not just a weapon, but a reminder, a conscience for our species. Earth isn't just our home, it's our better nature made manifest." Over the following weeks, the various human factions began the long process of relearning how to be one people. Some, like the Rigel Dominion, had to completely restructure their societies. Others shared technologies and philosophies that had been developed in isolation. But the most significant change came from an unexpected source. The Kethran Empire, inspired by their alliance with Earth, began reaching out to their former enemies. Species that had been conquered or threatened found themselves receiving offers of partnership instead of ultimatums. Elena stood in Gaia 7's core chamber, her hand resting on the crystalline interface that connected her to the planetary consciousness. Around the world, similar chambers had been opened in every major city, allowing humans to commune with their planet's guardian AI. "Have we succeeded?" she asked. "Is this what the ancestors hoped for?" "They hoped for survival," Gaia 7 replied. "You have achieved something greater. You have turned survival into growth, defense into invitation, isolation into unity. Through the interface, Elena could see the expanding web of connections spreading across the galaxy. Human colonies were reuniting not through conquest but through choice. Alien civilizations were abandoning cycles of warfare in favor of cooperation. The Catherine Empire was transforming from a force of destruction into a catalyst for peace. But this is just the beginning, the AI continued. Earth was designed to be a guardian. Now it must guard not just humanity, but the idea that beings can choose to be better than their nature demands. Elena felt the weight and wonder of that responsibility. Earth had awakened not just as a weapon but as a teacher, a living example that even the most advanced technology was meaningless without the wisdom to use it well. Above the planet, the Great Space Station continued to grow as humans from across the galaxy contributed their knowledge and skills. It would become the first embassy to the stars, a place where beings from different worlds could learn what it meant to choose cooperation over conquest. And at the heart of it all, Earth itself stood ready to defend that choice with all the power its ancient builders had provided. Not through destruction, but through demonstration. Not by conquering fear, but by inspiring hope. Elena smiled as she felt new signals arriving through the quantum gates. More ships, more species drawn by reports of a world that fought by refusing to fight. Earth's greatest weapon had turned out to be its greatest gift, the power to show others that there was always another choice. The Guardian was awake, and it was teaching the galaxy how to dream of something better. If you liked this story, please like it and leave your feedback in the comments. Subscribe for more stories.